How's everyone doing? It's Indiana here with Emptoraudio. Well, today we're going to look at one of my kind of current favorite brands in the hi-fi world. And yeah, I will admit they're kind of more of the ChiFi, which is, of course, hi-fi from China. And they're bringing quite a unique value to the hi-fi world. And the brand is SMSL. You may have heard of them, you may have not heard of them. They're not, the most common brand you might see when you type in hi-fi on Amazon, but they're one that you definitely might find whether you're looking around for different reviews. You're looking at desktop audio, desktop, headphone amps, or even just a simple two-channel amp. You might run across the name SMSL. Now, SMSL was actually founded in 2009. They're from Shenzhen, China, and they actually look like they have a pretty cool kind of like headquarters here from what I can see from their website. And they specialize, of course, in DACs, headphone amplifiers and stereo, power amplifiers, and they say that they have their own R&D, manufacturing, and marketing team. Now, of course, when you look at some of the stuff they do make, it is shared from, of course, Fozzy Audio, IAMA, there's a lot of brands out there that kind of share stuff here and there, even like Topping. Of course, as one of the older ChiFi brands, you can definitely see some of the, the cheaper two-channel amps they might have, of course, share some very similar features to them. All right, so moving ahead to 2014, they started to use ESS's DAC Chip Design and manufacture. Now that was quite a big jump for SMSL. I wasn't even aware of the brand at this time. I was only made aware of the brand. I think I knew about them maybe in like 2018 when I first started hearing about them in reviews. And of course, when an audio brand is a lot newer, you really don't see a lot about them. They're really trying to get their name out there. They don't necessarily get a lot of reviews. They're not a lot of, generating a ton of interest from a lot of different, brands and a lot of different, forums and things like that in the hi-fi world. So when other brands start out, they really are struggling there to really make a name for themselves. So we move on to 2015. They created that widely acclaimed Panda Set. I've actually heard of this set before. You don't really see this on eBay at all. It's very, very rare to even find this set anywhere. I've heard of it, but I've never actually seen one in person. Well, they basically created a little set here that has a DAC and an amp. I know at least that, but I don't really know much else about the Panda Set. I haven't really done a ton of research into it, but it was one of their most well-known kind of first products they actually made. It's kind of one of those things that kind of started setting them apart. You can kind of see, the SMSL stylings kind of start to take shape there in that Panda Set of kind of what they would go for in the future. You can definitely see the older style buttons there, and a couple of the SMSL, the badging there, and the funny with the color scheme here, where they have that green, orange, black, and silver all kind of mixed in there, kind of made it a little bit cluttered. But you can see as they move on to the future, they kind of really have got that cleaned up a bit. So moving into 2016, they jointly launched a new series of power amplifiers with the Danish Ice Power. Now, definitely Ice Power has been pretty well known. Heard a lot about their stuff, and going with their amplifiers is pretty cool to see that them team up with another brand like that for their amps. You don't really see a lot of brands, that will just, kind of stick by themselves. Especially when you get into like DAC chips and a lot of things like that, you definitely need to, branch out when it comes to these brands and really kind of get the technology to really, take your product to the next level. It's hard to do all that stuff in-house. So they started doing there was kind of branching out to other brands. Now, unfortunately, one of the biggest problems with ChiFi is that they don't really do a good job of, kind of getting into the right channels of audio. And what I mean by that is there's nothing wrong with, Shopee, Lazada, Amazon, and AliExpress. But the problem is those aren't really the best spots to find, hi-fi guys. If you're looking for hi-fi guys that are on the cheaper side, kind of like myself, that's fantastic. But if you're looking to really get into distribution, like here in the US or Europe, you're not really going to be able to do it when you have stuff on Amazon. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking more about like the kind of the more of the pro scene, when it comes to like, audio video guys that do that professionally. You might not find so many of those guys ever interested in products that are, of course, on Amazon. And there's not really I wouldn't say not really another good spot to really sell that kind of stuff either, that budget hi-fi. Other than maybe you got eBay, probably not even AudioGon is probably too high end for this kind of stuff anyways, but it does get a little bit limited there and where you can really sell this stuff, unfortunately. And it's kind of really all you can do there. It'd be cool to see something like almost like a website dedicated to just doing, audio that's like low to mid range. It'd be really cool to kind of see, kind of like a cheaper audio gun, but for something new product, of course. But Amazon, there's a 5,000 pound gorilla in the room, and that's kind of where it's all going to be. That's where the money's really at for all the hi-fi stuff there. And this is kind of about a year before I kind of started discovering SMSL, because they weren't really available really much anywhere else in the world to really buy. So as they get into Amazon, they get moving in the future here. This is where they start becoming a bit more popular here in the United States. Now in 2018, the flagship DAC was released, the DAC D1. That's when they launched that one back in 2018. They also started talking about the VMV, which is also one of their partnerships that kind of shows off more of their flagship line of their products. They don't really explain VMV too well. I did some research on it. I can't really find anything that I can really like nail down, other than it seems to be more of, it's a partnership and it's definitely their flagship. Other information that I can't really find anything else on that. Now, I did contact SMSL before I started this video. I never got a response back from them at all. My primary contact through SMSL is mostly going to be Emptoraudio, their main distributor in China. That's who I work for through Home Theater Hi-Fi, and that's how I get a lot of their products and get a lot of their information on a lot of their newer products. Unfortunately, I can't contact SMSL directly, even though I have tried to really reach out to them and get more information on the brand that I could give this video. But from what I've got from Emptoraudio, it's limited what they have basically elsewhere in the world. It's mainly well known in China and Japan. So it's tough to really get a lot of information about SMSL there. But anyways, their D1 was launched, and this is when they kind of started really finding their style when it came back in 2018. You can see this from this DAC here, that they really started, pushing that SMSL style out there. And of course, this DAC is still a good choice today when it comes to some of these DACs. Of course, you get newer chipsets, and you get a lot of newer stuff going on in there when it comes to firmware updates and things like that. But a lot of the older DACs, even 2018, that's only 5 years old, and you can still get away with a lot of the stuff there, especially if you're using over like USB. As long as you can still get drivers for them, it's not that bad of an idea there to pick up. Now, have I ever seen one of these in person? No. Have I seen one of them on eBay? No. So they're not very common to find there at all. All right, moving on to 2019, you're going to see MQA kind of start taking effect there, and of course that's a great buzzword that you hear a lot about, MQA. Definitely a very popular thing right now in the audio world. It's kind of been popular for quite a while. Now they released the new DAC M500, which is pretty cool. You can see that that's definitely kind of taking their newer style here. They've got a headphone amp on the front. You got that little volume control on the front as well too, and they've got that more SMSL, modern style logo in there on the front as well. You can still find these actually on eBay. I think like go for about $100 or so. They're still a pretty good deal to pick up if you can find one. But that was kind of one of their biggest, items that was launched that is still pretty well available and still, pretty highly sought after as well too to find. So that's kind of their first, I think their real take. That's when I first started really, talking to Emptoraudio more. That's when Secrets was kind of looking into their brand a little more as well too. So 2019 is where they really started, picking up steam there, which is pretty cool to see. So you might not even know, but SMSL does do speakers. Now, very limited speakers. They don't really have a lot out there. I've really only been able to find just one of their speakers, and I'll try to pronounce this. It's the Tebui, I think that's how you say it. I'm not really sure how to say that one. But they launched in their 10th anniversary. I don't think they make these anymore that I've seen. I know they do have a newer version out now. It's expensive, of course. But for me, though, I will say this. I've learned my lesson from a brand called Emotiva, that if a brand is really well known for making a DAC or an amp, they probably don't make too good of speakers. And that's kind of just my opinion there. But when a brand, if they're making speakers and they start making amps, well, you kind of know which one is good, which one might not be so good. Usually the item they're making first is usually the one that they're the best at. So am I interested to try these out? Not really. Would I love to hear them? Yeah, I'd love to hear them, but I don't necessarily know how they're actually going to sound compared to other options in that price point. But cool to see them kind of, branching a little bit, and be cool to see more of that here in the US, which you just really don't see that at all, unfortunately. All right, moving into 2021, they moved into a new office. Very cool to kind of see this, and some of the stuff you see out of China, is this just like a rendering or is this actually real? From what I can tell, this is actually real. And I sent a few questions to SMSL, asked about their new, location they moved into. Never got a response on that one. But very, very cool here to kind of see this new office space they have here. Conference room, they've got a really cool, front desk layout. Very cool there. Moving into 2022, they've got the all-new AK4499EX chip DAC. And of course, that's going to be up on their upper end here. They've got a lot of cool new stuff. That's going to be their D400EX DAC. Now, we've seen a lot of new DACs come out from SMSL recently, especially in the VMV, kind of their flagship line of stuff. And one thing I really like about SMSL is they really have a massive, level of, we make really affordable stuff. We got some good mid-range stuff. We got nice, high-end stuff as well, too. Where a lot of other brands that do ChiFi, they kind of stick maybe in that low, maybe they get into the mid-range, but that's where they stop. Whereas SMSL is kind of doing a bit of all three, which is pretty cool to see. I like seeing that good, better, best kind of layout for brands, because it allows you to kind of, if you want to upgrade later on, there's always that option too. Or if you just want to get in a nice low budget price point, that's also an option as well. So you've got a nice bit of, price points and budgets to really kind of fit anyone who wants to get into that brand. Now, my current SMSL setup on my desktop right now, I've got the DO300 DAC. I've got the all-new AO200 MK2 amplifier. I am running those with balanced cables right now, and I am using on the DAC the all-line out with a unbalanced output to my AD18 right now, and I'm using just for the headphone amplifier in there. I'm looking to pick up a better, maybe SMSL, maybe the VMV headphone amplifier in the future, but overall, I'm very happy with the brand so far. I will say the menus on the SMSL stuff is very similar to a lot of other brands. It's a bit shared from other brands that you can find relatively easily online, like Amazon and stuff. But a lot of their chipsets, a lot of their manufacturing is somewhat unique, not entirely unique to SMSL, but especially them having a lot of mid-range options like the DO300, the AO200 amps, is pretty cool to see. Of course, could you get better stuff? Yeah, that's never a big deal there. I will say the only issue I ever had with the SMSL stuff is the EQ being a little bit, finicky to adjust. It's a little bit tricky to find exactly where I like to have my EQ settings with the SMSL stuff. But overall, I found it to be definitely a bump up in quality from the usual stuff you find from ChiFi. And that's what I like about it a lot. I will say there is a decent used market for it on eBay, which is pretty cool. So it's also nice to have that as kind of a bit of a backup there if you want to find some of this stuff cheaper. I have found a couple of the VMV stuff for right around $100 on eBay too, which is pretty sweet. So picking up some of that nice higher end stuff. Now moving into the future with SMSL, they do of course have a lot of new higher end stuff coming out. That's going to be in that $1,000 price points there. However, the one complaint that I've seen in many other reviews about SMSL is that they're not really innovating too heavily when it comes to stuff. I will say like the AO200 going to the MK2 that I just picked up, yeah, there's not a huge amount of difference there in that amp from the older version. It's kind of more of like a 0.5 update, unfortunately. So that's kind of their pros and cons of SMSL, guys. Of course, it's not the oldest brand out there. It's not Macintosh, of course, but they are definitely doing some pretty cool stuff. And so far, I'm a big fan of the brand. I think they're doing some pretty cool, units they're pumping out right now, as well as they've got a really unique style to them, too. It's very kind of sleek, kind of modern, and a lot of stuff matches really well, too. So, guys, let me comment below what you think about SMSL, and take care, guys. Hope you enjoy your evening.